In the 1980s, one country built bulldozers, so enormous that the industry's #1 company had already declared them impossible. Caterpillar concluded you could not build a dozer bigger than 500 horsepower. Japanese engineers answered with crawlers pushing over 1,000. These machines moved mountains in coal fields from West Virginia to Siberia. One even worked underwater during the Chernobyl cleanup. These are 10 Japanese dozers from the 1980s that didn't just compete, they outworked everyone. Number 10. Komatsu D65. Before we get to the giants, let's start with the machine that actually paid the bills, the Komatsu D65. Throughout the 1980s, the D65 family was the dozer you were most likely to actually meet on a real job site. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't the biggest thing in the yard, but it was the workhorse that contractors trusted for road building, land clearing, site prep, and general grading. The D65 E8 version, built between roughly 1987 and 1992, sat in the 150 horsepower class and rode on 660mm track shoes, which gave it the footprint to stay planted while still being small enough to trailer between jobs without breaking it into pieces. Here's why the D65 mattered so much to Komatsu's reputation. In the early 1980s, American and European contractors were still deeply skeptical of Japanese heavy iron. The assumption was that Komatsu made cheap machines that wouldn't last. The D65 quietly demolished that idea. Its undercarriage used self-lubricating rollers and dust seals that kept grit out and oil in, the kind of unglamorous engineering that shows up not in a brochure but in a service log 5,000 hours later when the machine is still running. The D65 became the machine that converted skeptics. A contractor would buy one because it was cheaper than the Caterpillar equivalent, expect it to fail, and then watch it simply refuse to quit. That single experience is what opened the door for every bigger Komatsu we're about to talk about. Number 10 on our list isn't here because it was the most powerful. It's here because it was the machine that earned the trust that made the rest of this list possible. Number 9. Komatsu D85. Move up one weight class and you land on the Komatsu D85, the dozer that occupied the sweet spot of the entire market. The D85A series, with versions like the D85A18 from around 1980 and the later D85A21, sat in roughly the 200 horsepower class. That number matters because 200 horsepower is right where a bulldozer becomes genuinely serious. It's big enough to move real volume on a mining prep pad or a large earthworks project, but not so big that you need a specialist low loader and a police escort just to get it to site. What made the D85 special in the 1980s was its versatility. Komatsu offered it with straight blades, angle blades, and semi-U blades, so the same base tractor could be tuned for fine grading one week and mass excavation the next. Add a rear-mounted ripper, and the D85 could tear into compacted ground and soft rock that would stop a lighter machine cold. The genius of the D85 was that it belonged to a family. Komatsu deliberately engineered the D65, D85, and D155 to share a design philosophy and, in many cases, related components. A parts department that stocked for one could support the others. A mechanic who knew one knew them all. For a contractor or a mining operation running a mixed fleet, that commonality translated directly into less downtime and lower cost per hour. And cost per hour is the number that actually decides which dozer outworks the competition. By the middle of the decade, the D85 had become a global bestseller, showing up on job sites across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas. It was proof that Japan could build not just cheap machines, but genuinely good ones, in the exact class where the most machines are sold. Number 8. Mitsubishi and Caterpillar. Mitsubishi. Now, before anyone accuses this list of being all Komatsu, let's be honest about the industry. Because in the 1980s, Komatsu was not the only Japanese company building dozers. Back in November 1963, Caterpillar and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries created a 50-50 joint venture in Japan called Caterpillar Mitsubishi Limited. With technical help from Caterpillar, the venture began building track-type tractors and wheel loaders domestically. And in 1965, it completed the first Caterpillar D4D bulldozer ever produced in Japan. That partnership meant that throughout the 1980s, a huge share of the Caterpillar dozers working across Asia were actually engineered and assembled on Japanese soil. In 1987, right in the heart of our decade, the venture was expanded and renamed Caterpillar Mitsubishi, growing into the #2 construction equipment maker in Japan, second only to Komatsu. So when you picture the Japanese dozer boom of the 80s, it wasn't a one-company show. It was Komatsu at the top and a Caterpillar Mitsubishi juggernaut right behind it. Mitsubishi also built its own line of compact dozers under the BD badge. Small, tough, nimble crawlers, often fitted with 6-way blades that became favorites for landscaping, utility work, and tight access sites. They weren't going to move a mountain, but they represented the other half of Japan's dozer strategy. While Komatsu chased the record books at the giant end, the Mitsubishi and Caterpillar Mitsubishi machines quietly locked down the small and mid-size market. Between them, Japanese factories were covering the entire spectrum, and that combined pressure is exactly what put the established Western brands on the defensive. Number 7. Komatsu D155. Now we're getting into the machines that genuinely rewrote what people expected from Japanese iron. Meet the Komatsu D155A. If the D85 was the sweet spot, the D155 was the backbone of Komatsu's large dozer lineup. Powered by Komatsu's own S6 D155 6-cylinder diesel and sitting in roughly the 300 horsepower class, the D155A was a genuinely big machine, around 36 tons in operating weight, but still practical enough to run on ordinary large earth-moving and mining projects rather than only on record-setting mega sites. The D155A is important for one specific reason. It was the engine platform Komatsu trusted. When the company needed a proven powertrain for other projects, this is where they turned. The design ran through multiple generations across the 1980s, with the D155A2 in production from around 1989 into the mid-1990s, each version refining the drivetrain, the operator station, and the undercarriage. What made the D155A outwork its rivals wasn't a single headline spec, it was balance. It had enough power to push a big semi-U blade fully loaded, enough weight to put that power to the ground without spinning the tracks, and Komatsu's torque flow transmission with wet disc steering clutches and brakes that lasted far longer than the older dry clutch designs used elsewhere. On a mine haul road, on a dam project, on a massive land reclamation site, the D155A just kept turning material shift after shift. It became such a familiar sight worldwide that for an entire generation of operators, Komatsu Dozer and D155 were almost the same phrase. And as you'll see in a moment, this exact machine became the foundation for one of the strangest, most heroic bulldozers ever built. Number 6. Komatsu D155W. This is the one that stops people in their tracks. Take that reliable D155 platform, seal it up, and send it beneath the waves. The result was the Komatsu D155W, the world's first commercially marketed amphibious bulldozer. The D155W was built to do something almost no other machine on Earth could: work fully submerged. Its engine, a modified version of the 6-cylinder diesel from the D155A, producing 302 horsepower at 1,900 RPM, sat inside a completely sealed compartment so water couldn't reach the vital components. To breathe underwater, it used a snorkel system borrowed straight from submarine thinking, feeding fresh air to the engine and carrying a compressor for extra airflow. On extra-wide tracks over 2 feet across, it could crawl along a seabed at depths of up to 23 feet, shaping harbor floors, laying groundwork for breakwaters, and doing marine construction that would otherwise require divers and dredges. But the D155W earned its place in history for something far heavier than harbor work. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986, cleanup crews faced areas where radiation was simply too intense for a human being to survive. Because the D155W could be operated by remote control, it was pressed into service in that catastrophe, working in zones no operator could enter, helping move contaminated material where flesh and blood couldn't go. It was never a mass-market machine. The cost of building, running, and maintaining something this specialized was enormous, and only about 36 units were ever produced. But that rarity is the whole point. The D155W is proof of a mindset that defined Japanese dozer engineering in the 1980s. If the job existed, they would build the machine, even if the job was at the bottom of a harbor or inside a nuclear nightmare. That is a very particular way of outworking everyone. Number 5. Komatsu D355. A. Now the machines start getting truly large. The Komatsu D355A was one of the tractors that put Komatsu on the map in the brutal world of surface coal mining. Production of the D355 series began around 1980, and the machine was built on a proven idea. Take Komatsu's trusted D155 family engine, improve it, and put it into a much bigger tractor. The result was a heavyweight in roughly the 410 horsepower class, weighing in the mid-40-ton range, with a wide blade capable of shoving serious volume and a torque flow drivetrain built to deliver smooth, relentless torque. The D355A landed at exactly the right moment. Through the late 1970s and into the 1980s, surface mine operators in the United States, Australia, and elsewhere were desperate for bigger, more productive dozers to strip overburden the rock and soil sitting on top of a coal seam. Every extra cubic yard a dozer could move per pass meant more coal exposed faster at lower cost. Komatsu's big tractors, the D355A among them, went head-to-head with Caterpillar in these fields and started winning contracts on the strength of raw productivity and a lower purchase price. The D355A wasn't perfect. A machine this size drinks fuel, and its bulk made it less nimble than smaller dozers. But nobody bought a 45-ton crawler to be nimble. They bought it to move enormous quantities of material without complaint, hour after hour, in some of the harshest working environments on the planet. And in that specific mission, the D355A delivered, softening up the American and Australian mining market for the even bigger Komatsu machines that were coming next. Number 4. Komatsu D375. In 1984, Komatsu did something bold. Caterpillar had introduced a radical new idea, the high drive undercarriage, with the drive sprocket lifted up in a triangle shape, and the whole industry was watching to see if Komatsu would copy it. Instead, Komatsu doubled down on its own philosophy and launched the D375A. The D375A deliberately kept a low-drive oval track undercarriage and a low center of gravity, betting that keeping the weight down low gave better stability and traction for heavy dozing and ripping. It was Komatsu's direct answer to Caterpillar's newest large tractors, a statement that you didn't need to follow the leader to beat the leader. And here's a detail most people don't know. To give the D375A a completely fresh, modern look, Komatsu handed the styling of the machine's body to an Italian design house. That's right, a Japanese mining bulldozer with Italian-designed bodywork. In an industry where styling usually meant paint it yellow and bolt on a light, that was a genuinely unusual move, and it signaled that Komatsu was thinking about its machines as flagship products, not just tools. The D375A slotted in above the D355A as one of Komatsu's premier large dozers, aimed squarely at big mining and heavy construction. It carried a large blade and a giant ripper for tearing into hard ground, and it was engineered from the start to be a long-lived, high-production machine. The D375A designation proved so successful that Komatsu kept building and improving it for decades. The lineage runs all the way to the modern D375A8, still a heavyweight in today's mining fleets. But it all started here, in 1984, with a Japanese company confidently refusing to imitate its biggest rival and outworking it anyway. Number 3. Komatsu D475A. By the mid-1980s, Komatsu was ready to replace its original superdozer with something even more capable. In 1986, it launched the Komatsu D475A. The D475A1 arrived with 740 horsepower, a huge jump over the roughly 650 horsepower machine it replaced, and it was engineered around a crucial idea that the previous generation had struggled with: modularity. A dozer this enormous is a nightmare to transport and to service, so Komatsu designed the D475A from the ground up in modular sections, making it dramatically easier to break down, move between job sites, and repair in the field. That might sound like a boring engineering footnote, but on a real mine site it's everything. A giant dozer that can't be moved or fixed quickly is a giant dozer that isn't making money. By making the D475A easier to maintain and relocate, Komatsu attacked the exact weakness that had limited the appeal of ultra-large machines. The result was a tractor that could sit in the over 100-ton class in its later versions while still being practical to run as part of a working fleet. The D375A became one of the most respected super-large dozers in the world and went toe-to-toe with Caterpillar's biggest machines in surface mining. Like the D375A, it proved so good that Komatsu never really replaced it, they just kept refining it. The current D375A8 still ranks as the second largest dozer Komatsu makes, right behind the machine we're about to crown number one. When people talk about the exact moment Komatsu went from credible challenger to co-leader of the heavy dozer world, the 1986 launch of the D375A is a very strong candidate. Number 2. Komatsu D355. To understand why this next machine is so important, you have to understand the challenge it answered. In the 1970s, mine operators in the United States, Australia, and the Soviet Union were begging for bigger dozers. Caterpillar, the undisputed number one, studied the problem and concluded it was impossible to build a bulldozer with more than 500 horsepower using the metallurgy and heat treating technology of the day. So Komatsu decided to build one anyway. The result, developed over more than 5 years and introduced in the mid-1970s, was the Komatsu D355A, and it carried straight through as the reigning Japanese superdozer for most of the 1980s. Komatsu didn't yet have an engine powerful enough in-house, so they turned to their longtime partner Cummins, whose turbocharged V12 VTA 1710 delivered 620 flywheel horsepower, well past the impossible 500 horsepower ceiling. Komatsu mated that engine to an ingenious split-power system of its own design, using 2 torque converters and 2 4-speed power-shift transmissions, sharing the load through a center clutch. The numbers were staggering for the era. There, the D355A weighed around 58 tons. Fully equipped with a U-blade and a rear ripper, it pushed past 90 tons. It could be fitted with a 16-foot straight blade or a 20-foot U-blade that moved enormous quantities of material, and its giant ripper could tear ground with a tip velocity that engineers compared to the effect of dynamite. In the early 1980s, Komatsu updated the machine, raising output to 650 horsepower and redesigning the cab and rollover protection for better visibility and access, and it sold. The D355A was exported from Japan all over the world, hugely popular in the United States, Australia, and Russia, and working in quarries as far afield as Spain and Germany. It stayed in production right up until 1987, when the D375A finally took its place. This is the machine that proved the impossible wasn't impossible at all. It was just waiting for someone willing to build it. That's about as literal a definition of outworked everyone as you'll ever find. Number 1. Komatsu D575A. And that brings us to number 1. A machine whose story begins right at the start of our decade and ends with a world record that still stands today. In 1981, at the ConExpo Equipment Exhibition in Houston, Texas, Komatsu rolled out a prototype that made jaws hit the floor. The D555A, a bulldozer boasting 1,000 horsepower. Nobody had ever publicly shown a production intent dozer that powerful. It was a declaration of pure ambition, Komatsu telling the world exactly where it intended to go. Then the 80s happened to it. A severe downturn in the mining sector gutted demand for capital-intensive equipment, and development of the superdozer stalled for much of the decade. The dream sat on the shelf, but Komatsu never abandoned it. As the economy recovered late in the decade, they resumed the program, and in 1989, the successor machine, the D575A, began field testing in North America, logging over 1,000 hours in the Pennsylvania coal fields before full production finally began in 1991. The machine that emerged is, to this day, recognized as the largest production bulldozer in the world. It's powered by a 12-cylinder Komatsu diesel, producing 1,150 horsepower. In its dedicated superdozer form, it weighs over 150 tons, stands 16 feet tall, and swings a blade around 24 feet wide. With that standard blade, it moves roughly 90 cubic yards of material in a single pass, and with an optional blade, up to 125 cubic yards at a time. To put that in human terms, a single push shoves the equivalent of several large dump truck loads of earth. It was so massive that moving it between job sites required breaking it into components and hauling it on 6 to 8 truckloads. Only a small number were ever built, and they went where nothing else could cope. Surface coal mines in West Virginia, where at one point 17 of them worked the Appalachian fields, and mines in Australia where they ripped ground too close to homes to blast, often by remote control. The D575A never sold in huge numbers, and Komatsu reportedly ran it at a loss for the prestige of building the biggest. But that's exactly why it tops this list. It was born from a 1980s dream, an audacious 1981 prototype from a company that refused to accept limits, and it became a record that Caterpillar, for all its might, has never taken away. The largest bulldozer humanity has ever mass-produced is Japanese, and its story started in the decade we've been talking about this whole time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into heavy iron history, let me know in the comments which of these monsters you'd most want to climb into and run. And if there's a machine you think deserved a spot on this list, tell me about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.